Hi everyone, I'm Kelly with HealthyPlace.com. Today we're talking about what it's like living with borderline personality disorder. If you're not familiar with BPD, it's an illness marked by varying moods, self-image, varying self-image and behavior. These symptoms often result in impulsive actions and problems in relationships. So, you can find out more about borderline personality disorder on HealthyPlace.com under personality disorders. And our first guest is Isabelle. She should be here. There she is. Our first guest is Isabelle. Then we'll bring on therapist Becca Clegg to talk about treatments for borderline and how effective they are. So let me get Isabelle. She's joining. Here she comes. Hello, Isabelle. How are you today?
Yeah. I'm good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me here.
Thank you for coming. So what kind of symptoms do you have and how are they affecting you?
So I would say that I identify with all 9 of the 9 sort of main traits of BPD. And that's something I have in common with my favorite fictional character, Rebecca Bloom in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. When she gets diagnosed, they go through a montage of sort of her psychiatrist saying the symptoms, and she was like, I don't like this diagnosis, I want a different one. Her psychiatrist went through the symptoms, and then you had flashbacks, and she was like, I have all 9 traits. So yeah, we can talk about any of them.
So what, if you had to pick one that interferes the most in what you would like doing, which one would that be?
I would say, as we've sort of talked about before, actually, I would say maybe an unclear or a shifting self-image is a really, really hard one to live with.
Yeah, that one's interesting to me. What is that like? A shifting self-image?
So to me, for many years, it felt like just a sort of like a scramble for an identity, basically. So I didn't quite know why, but I would sort of, I mean, I have autism as well, so I do hyperfocus, but I would really obsess over certain things. I'm going to do this next. I'm going to study this now. I'm going to do this, and sort of really try and sort of like find myself outside of myself, you know? So that's kind of how it manifested for me in quite a difficult way for a very long time. And it wasn't until I sort of started my therapy, which I've been in for about 5 years now, that I was able to sort of bear to be with myself and look at myself and actually look at what makes me me. And that's been a big part of my mental health recovery since my psychosis as well. But it messes with everything. Like if someone asked you to do something like, oh, will you do a painting for me? You know, like my brain will just instantly be like, well, I'm not an artist, what are you talking about? So like I lose it. I'm like, that's, you know, I don't think of myself as like, it's just basically it's confusing. I have to remind myself every day of who I am and sort of take active steps in that, if that makes sense.
You mentioned when we were talking, and that's interesting, you know, I'm not an artist, but you are an artist, aren't you? You have your studio and paintings, and I'm trying to see what's behind you right now, but I've got
one of my paintings, yeah. It's and to now sort of having got my artistic practice back after for 10 years of my life, I thought I couldn't draw. And now I believe everyone can draw and everybody can make art, but I really thought I was just terrible, you know, and I didn't paint or draw anything for about 10 years. So, you know, and that was something that I grew up doing, and I really lost that and was like, I'm something else. I don't want to be that. I want to be something else. And I was just trying to find things to make me a different person. Whereas actually who I am was there the whole time. So every single day now I try and make art and I talk about art and I sort of like reaffirm that to myself. It really, and I surround myself with it as well. You know, I sort of have my art everywhere. I really need visual reminders, and I have to write everything down every day. And it's exhausting.
I imagine it is. That sounds really scary, even to lose track of yourself like that. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you feel that whole, and as well, a lot of these symptoms link in with each other, because with the identity issues, you've got that chronic feelings of emptiness. With the chronic feelings of emptiness, as we've spoken about before, you have filling that hole with unstable relationships. And I was always trying to find myself in relationships as well, you know.
Mm-hmm. And
really volatile relationships.
how does that work out? Like when you're looking for yourself in a relationship, what kind of problems does that create?
All of them, like honestly, all of them. It's, if you're approaching a relationship in the context of, all right, I'm going to find myself here, or this person's going to give me what I need, or that will be my other half, you know, I'll complete myself. It just doesn't work, because it's not true. Like what I've just, and I, you know, I say this as fact, this is what I think from my experience. It is about approaching a relationship, knowing who you are, and seeing if that complements another person, and if, you know, you can go forward in life together as a team. And but you've got to, like, you've got to be your own team, essentially. And that's really, really difficult. And I've, you know, spent years and years of my lives focusing on relationships, not on career, not on self-care, you know, just focusing on relationships and getting that new identity and feeling secure. And of course, then you lead on to the fear of abandonment, or the feelings of abandonment. And some people call it perceived abandonment. Like, for instance, today, right, this has been a difficult thing. My partner was going to come and visit. He's a COVID tester, so he's able to test himself and visit and come and visit me, because I'm disabled, and we're sort of in a bubble. But he had to go and actually help a friend instead. So that was, I started feeling really not good, like really, really, really not good. And I was like, all right, what am I feeling not good about? Like, he's there with our friend now, they're both fine and everything's good. And I was like, it's that perception, that unconscious perception of abandonment, if that makes sense. You know, I know my partner's not abandoned me in any way, but right. Those emotions that come up and defy your logic, defy your reasoning, defy your understanding, they're just, for me, unavoidable. And actually, it's just about feeling them and identifying them, you know. And that's the only way that I can kind of stop each emotion as it comes up taking control of me. And sometimes they do take control of me, I'll be honest.
So, like, you can't talk to yourself logically into believing, you know, everything's okay and he still loves you, right? So you have to sit with all of those painful emotions. Is that what you're saying? You have to go through them?
It's really strange, because in my head, I've been in therapy for a long time. I've been in recovery from psychosis for about 10 months. So dealing with my emotions as they come up is like a daily practice for me at the moment. Like, what other people would have put time aside in their day for a career, I kind of have that time in my day for recovery and self-care and that sort of work. So I already know that, like, I'm familiar with this. It kind of comes up, I'm familiar with it, and I completely know I haven't been abandoned. I even know that I'm feeling perceived abandonment, if you want to call it that, and yet it's still there. Mm-hmm. And I then have to do active work in, even though I can talk to myself and I know that I'm not abandoned, that feeling which really manifests in my stomach, my emotions really, I strongly feel them in my stomach. I kind of have to then do things to tackle those emotions. So journaling is one, art is very much another. Actually, you know, talking to people about it, talking to my partner about it, talking to my mom about it, like all of those things, I need to do them to just get through the emotional responses that I have, even though I logically and consciously understand that I'm not abandoned.
We have a comment from Neurodiverse AF. A sense of shifting identity and low self-worth, trying to latch on to something, can relate to relationships and codependency. So it sounds very difficult.
It's absolutely true that. And low self-esteem is has been an issue for me all my life, and I do believe that just anyone with borderline personality disorder, I do believe has experienced that. And I think probably every human has experienced it. And that's the thing with all these emotions and these reactions and these feelings, is that they're all completely human. In the same way that I explain autism, which is like, you know, all right, so sensory differences, everyone probably has a smell they don't like, but probably they can just be like, oh, I don't like that. I can't stand it, got to leave the room. You know, it's a magnification of just a human response. And that's the thing with borderline too, is I think every human has been through all of these emotions, and it's just in borderline, we have these particular ones, they are magnified, and all our emotions are magnified. Therefore, all of the issues that come with feeling things that strongly is going to come, like the self-worth and the doubting, and especially when you're undiagnosed, you don't know why. You seem to, it feels like a weakness before you're diagnosed. For me, it felt like, well, we're in a group of friends and whatever, something's happened and everybody deals with it, and I just break down.
Well, you froze up on me. I'm sure you'll be right back. There you are. Like you were saying when you were talking about abandonment and having just felt that crushing feeling just today, I felt that maybe twice in, you know, my memory. And so to imagine going through that all of the time, you know, I just can't imagine.
A lot of us self-medicate, you know. I mean, of course there are medications. I myself, I'm on antidepressants. I'm also on meds for my ADHD. I've also got a prescription for medical cannabis from a psychiatrist. But there is, with feeling everything that strongly and basically everything being so exhausting, self-medication is a really, really common hi Dad, I'm working, no worries, I'll have dinner later, thank you. I love my dad. Oh yeah, self-medication, yeah. So feeling everything that strongly, you know, comes with it, you know, you try something like alcohol and maybe it numbs it all out a bit, or maybe you actually just feel like, oh, I can express myself now, like I'm drunk and yelling and dancing a night out and now I feel good. But for me, my addictions kind of came with just discovering that something made me feel better for a little bit, and something eased that that discomfort in my stomach, you know, for a little bit. And yeah, I'm still struggling with addictions.
When you said you have all 9 symptoms, so like one of them is rapid emotional change, I believe.
Yeah.
So you experienced that also. And let me tell you, we have a comment here for you, Michelle. She says, I'm very proud of you, Izzy, for sharing your experiences.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so what is that emotional roller coaster like?
So now that I'm, yeah, so I'd spent a long time actually trying to manage myself with substances, and for a long time I didn't know what my natural baseline was. Now I'm in recovery. I was talking to my parents about this yesterday. I've basically discovered that no matter how hard I work at my recovery, that rapid cycle of emotions is it's never going to change unless I'm like taking substances to really alter my state, which I want help with coping. I don't want to numb them out or you know, change them. But it's really, really, more than anything, it's fatiguing. And a lot of women who have BPD, autism, ADHD have a lot of chronic illnesses, because I believe that a lot of things manifest in the body. So emotional strain, it manifests in the body, stress manifests in the body. So I would say it's fatiguing, it's unrelenting, it's exhausting, and at the same time, with the low emotions, you also get to be like, so excited about things, so happy about things. So like on an average day, there'll be so many things that I get really excited about and really happy about, as well. So, and that in itself is exhausting. So it is just generally exhausting, but it's not bad all the time. And it's just about knowing that whatever I'm experiencing in this moment isn't forever. That's been a big lesson for me, because it feels endless. It feels like in that rapid cycle of emotions, whatever emotion hits at the time feels consuming, like that's all there is. And that's all there will ever be. Yeah.
So when you're in a low emotion, then that would be really bad. But you're saying like when you're feeling better, it's okay. So what would you say it balances out, or is that even possible? Is it possible for you to go to bed at night and say, today was a great day, I did it? Does that happen for you?
100% yes. 100% yes. Since I have been in recovery, and I'm such an advocate for the recovery process, because it is multifaceted, is holistic, and a lot of it has involved me like journaling what I'm grateful for in the day, what I've achieved in the day, and I just sort of, and if something happens and I'm triggered, maybe I'll write about it and actually look at my day and be like, okay, there was some difficult things here and some good things here, and I got through it. That for me every single day is a win. Honestly it is. And I do believe it does balance in the end, because having BPD, it's my personality, it's the way that my personality is developed, in a way that a lot of other people's personalities have developed, and how we are isn't wrong, and it does balance. It can balance, but it takes careful, just again from my experience, it takes really careful managing.
I like how you say, how we are isn't wrong, and that borderline is one of the most stigmatized mental illnesses. Just let me say, Ember, she's replying to somebody else, but she says, that's what I tend to do, and it often works really well. And I believe the other comment was about going with the flow is a strategy.
Oh God, so, yeah. Oh God, yeah. Moment to moment is how I cope with life. Like literally, like I was just talking to my best mate, who I think is here in the chat somewhere, and I was saying, like, I'm really excited, like I want to move in with you and we've got these plans, but I'm not gonna get like anxious about, oh my God, when is this gonna happen, how am I gonna manage this and this and this. I'm just gonna allow myself to be like generally excited by the concept, maybe for a few minutes. And I said this to him as well yesterday. I said, before my recovery, I would have just run with that. I would have just been on Rightmove. That's all I would have done. Would just be like, oh, I'm going to get a new house. And just search for houses and do nothing else. So even the good emotions, it takes some managing. But I can't remember what we were originally talking about. Oh, there he is. So good at putting into words how she's feeling. Thank you.
Yes, you are. You are very good at that. And have you ever had to deal with any stigma from BPD? Or is it self-stigma maybe?
Oh, well, both. I certainly have my own stigma, which I have completely admitted to, that, that I fully said in front of lots of people, a few years ago, not even that long ago, oh, I might have this, I might have this, at least I don't have BPD. Even I had, so it was certainly getting past my own stigma. And God, when I had a phase of online dating, that was a bit rough, because loads of guys said on their profiles, like, no psychos, no BPD. So that was kind of my first bit of stigma, having been diagnosed. And so to be literally like not you before they even meet you, just because of a diagnosis you have and the stigma that carries, yeah, it does hurt.
And you
Yeah.
mentioned journaling and Chris, maybe kitchen. Writing is a form of freedom. So,
Yes. Yeah, it
so
is.
talk a little bit about your therapy before we go, like your journaling and what
Yeah.
you're doing.
So yeah, so my therapy, I think I've been in for about 5 years with my therapist. After my grandma died, um, a little bit under 2 years ago, I went up to 2 sessions a week. And I stayed at 2 sessions a week, and we really need that space and that time. It took years and years for me to even be able to bring my authentic emotions into the therapy room, because whilst I feel these emotions and everything, especially before I was diagnosed and even past diagnosis, my feelings are so extreme that I've built up so many barriers over my life and tried to build my own emotional skin, if you will, by like displacing my emotions. So like, that emotion's going to hurt me, I'm not going to bring it here, I'm literally going to leave it outside and not be able to even feel it. So I had a lot of, I'm very, I'm a rambler, I do talk. So, I was talking and talking and talking in therapy for years before I even was able to be comfortable enough in that space to bring everything in here. And it's still only a recent thing, honestly. Like, it's such a journey where therapy is concerned. I think have you got a therapist guest speaking as well?
Yes,
Brilliant.
Becca Clegg is coming on right
Yeah.
after here in a minute.
Yeah, therapy is key. I just cannot say that enough. And yeah, and the writing, and the journaling. I do bullet journaling to help manage like my everyday, and my tasks. Like, so this is yesterday's. That's my to-do list. What I've done, tasks I've migrated, my thoughts about the day, my food log to help manage my eating disorders, smoking I'm trying to keep track of it, my achievement and my gratitude. So that's a day for me. But I've also got other journals where I write down article ideas, and other ones where I've got like poetry. And I only started writing when I was in psychosis, like a year ago. And I managed to keep that practice coming out of psychosis. And whoever said writing is freedom, it is. It really, really is. I cannot stress enough how much is given to me.
Well, I really like your personality, to tell you the truth. I was telling
Like
my
you.
friend when I talked to you last, I was like, she could be my friend. but I just really want to tell you thank you for coming on and talking to everybody, and for being, so genuine and articulate with everything. I think you're an amazing person, and I hope to talk to you again sometime. Isabelle.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here. Like, honestly, it's been a real blessing. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's see. Okay, now I'm going to bring on therapist Becca Clegg, and let me get her. I'll send her the request again. And Becca has worked in inpatient and outpatient treatment settings. And hello.
Hi.
And you can find out more about her from her blog, which is RebeccaClegg.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
What did you think about Isabelle's story?
I thought it was awesome. There's so many points she made that I wanted to be like, oh, I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad you said that too. And she did a great job. And I'm just so, whenever I hear somebody speaking about recovery or the process as though it is this amazing thing and putting a positive spin on it, I just love it, because recovery can be very hard, and it's a lot of hard work, and as such it gets a lot of bad connotations, and it can get a bad rap. And so I'm always so excited when I see people going out into the world talking about how awesome it is and what an amazing journey it is. So I loved all of what she said.
So talking about treatments, what kind of treatments would somebody with borderline expect to be suggested to them?
Yeah, so the gold standard for care around BPD is these days, and has been for a while, dialectical behavioral therapy is really popular. They call it DBT. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's actually Marsha Linehan is the psychologist, I think, that started it. And she had come out in the New York Times pretty recently saying she actually created it because she herself had BPD and was hospitalized in her teens. And so in an effort to do something, she went back, got her degree, and she created this system. And it's a nice blend of cognitive behavioral, kind of more Western science, evidence-based theories, and mindfulness and some more Eastern philosophies. And it's a really lovely, kind of brings it all together in a very doable workbook. And it's a very structured program. And it's been really the sort of gold standard in terms of referring. But a lot of, that's not the only thing that would work. You know, I'm somatically trained, meaning I use the body a lot in helping people regulate the nervous system. And that's an amazing, you know, way to, as he was saying, you know, the moods can be so high and so low, and you can know cognitively, like, I'm not being abandoned, but that doesn't mean your nervous system is regulated. And so learning how to use the body to come into regulation and find that safety in the body can be really effective. So, you know, they say about therapy, the number one thing that works is the relationship. Like, so of all the things we can study, the relationship you have with your therapist is like the most important variable. So I would say first and foremost, find someone you feel really listens to you. And if you have somebody who's stigmatizing you in any way, or labeling you or diagnosing you in a way that doesn't feel, you know, as he was saying, she felt very seen, and probably it might have felt contained to see herself in a diagnosis. That's when diagnosis works. When it doesn't is when you feel like you have a label put on you and that you become this illness, and that is not at all the case. You know, if you have specific questions for me, ask me, because I'm just going to go on and on. But the thing about borderline personality disorder, or any of what used to be called axis 2 disorders, which are personality disorders, there's biopsychosocial aspects to it. So biological, psychological, and social. And the psychological and social piece is that we learn these behaviors as a way of coping. And I think with borderline, it's because the sensitivity levels are off the roof. I once had a client say, you know, Becca, it's like I was born without emotional skin. So everything affects me, including the good stuff, as Izzy was saying. And so all the other sort of 9 symptoms develop around with the fact that, holy hell, it hurts. You know, it's hard. So if you find yourself grappling with this diagnosis, I want you to have compassion, because you're doing this not because you're bad or wrong or even sick. I don't even like that. You're doing it because you're trying to survive. Okay. And you can unlearn some of the things that are now hurting you, you know, but it isn't that you're flawed or you're wrong. And I really want to send that message home. The stigma around personality disorders drives me crazy. It has since I worked in the hospital system, and it is very real. And it's, you're not making that up. Said for somebody who's, you know, behind the scenes. I think, quite honestly, it can be really hard to treat, and people get frustrated, and therefore it becomes easy to just look at it as though it's the problem. Anyway, so.
We have a comment here. Let's see. Oh, it is from Isabelle. She says she was offered DBT through the NHS, which I think is National Health System, but could not do more than one type of therapy at the same time. Some of my friends have had DBT, and it worked well for them. So DBT is kind of, like Isabelle said, a holistic kind of therapy. It's what she feels like she's doing.
Yeah, so DBT is actually very specific if it's done in its traditional form. DBT requires that you have a DBT therapist, and you're in a group as well. And so it's and you have to sort of sign up for the entire program. So it's very structured, and the structure is actually part of what helps, because as he was saying, that there's this sense of like, I don't know who I am, unstable sense of self. So what happens is the boundaries of the program actually really do help. They use things like, she had bullet journaling, but they use this technique called a diary card where you're writing stuff down every day. And if you think about that, you're putting it external. You're taking all the feelings and giving yourself an external marker for it. And so it really helps to create that sense of containment or boundary. There's this really lovely Venn diagram that they use where they talk about emotion mind and logic mind, and then they bring it together into what they call wise mind. And you have to ask, like, what is the emotion? What is the logic? And then what happens if I bring them together on what's called the middle path, which is an Eastern kind of philosophy concept. But it's a lovely way of slowing down emotional reactivity and bringing it into sort of a more controlled, like the wise mind is actually a worksheet that you go through and you figure it out. And there's a million different other interventions. There's a workbook you can go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon and order, and they actually have a lot of tools online, and they have apps for like DBT diary cards and stuff, if anybody listening is interested. But that being said, I don't want to say that's the only therapy that's effective by any means. It's just known, and there's empirical data that shows that it's incredibly effective.
You mentioned somatic. I think that means that you use your physical body to regulate what's going on in your mind.
Yes. Yes. So they call it bottom up as opposed to top down. Top down is, let's talk about what you're thinking and let's change your thought so that you feel more aligned in your body. And bottom up is, let's not even address the thought. Let's do stuff with your body. Like, for instance, I don't know if you can see me, but like this is a somatic technique that Peter Levine, a trauma therapist, renowned trauma therapist, talks about. Just simply putting your hand on your heart and your head and breathing for like 10 minutes actually helps regulate your nervous system. So you don't even have to think. You just have to do that. And your body, your nervous system will organize in such a way where you go from sympathetic, which is fight and flight and all the feelings, to parasympathetic, which lets you rest and repair and feel safer in the body.
That was really amazing, because when I did it just that briefly, I started to feel like this warming sensation, like comfort and, peaceful. That's really amazing.
I don't know. I am like a massive animal lover. Love dogs and all animals. But the thunder shirt that the dogs will wear when they're how and then you think about like the heavy blankets, the weighted blanket.
The weighted blanket.
It's the same concepts that when we use our body, the body can send the signal to the brain, I'm safe. Because think about it, if you've ever had a panic attack, I have, a lot of people, you're not like in danger on some level. So the frontal lobe is just only so effective. And what happens is when the nervous system is going out of control, which with BPD is happening, it's like this constant flow, right? What's happening is you can't think your way out of it, because the frontal lobe, which is where the thoughts come from, it shuts down. And it's all what's called the mammalian brain, or it's the amygdala. And that's where all of the signals of danger are coming from. So for folks with BPD, they're constantly going in and out of regulation. And that's their experience. There's saying like any wind that kind of comes through the day, it's going to like feel like hurricane force. It's a tough sell, but I like to talk to my clients about like, this is a gift. There is the creativity and the ability to be present with life that I see with my clients. It's unbelievable. But oftentimes our gifts can feel like curses on the other side, because everything is dual in its nature, right? So the lighter your light, the darker the dark. And we kind of talk about that because it's really a mission of mine. I do not want people, as you said this great, to think that they inherently are flawed, because I just don't believe that's true. I think that we as a society are so quick to be like broken, ill, and that language can really be half of the battle with the stigma itself. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, I guess one more question.
Sure.
People might be tuning in because they're wondering if they can identify with
Yeah.
borderline.
Yeah.
So let's say that you're untreated
Mm-hmm.
and or haven't been diagnosed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of things might you notice about yourself that would suggest it might be time to go to the doctor?
Well, certainly if you're having any kind of self-harming thoughts, within the spectrum of BPD, you do see a lot of cutting or self-mutilation, and or you can have suicidal thoughts too. Again, you think about it like a continuum, right? We're all on it, by the way. Everybody has what they would call borderline traits. Like we've all got some version of that. But and I'm not going to go over too much because you and Izzy covered it well, but if you're having any kind of self-harming, and that includes, really reckless behavior, a lot of times recklessness around substance use, at times like reckless, and there's no moral judgment here, but like reckless promiscuity, like, and I don't mean promiscuous, like I'm all for do whatever you want, but like not taking care of your health, not just recklessness. You see a lot of things like that. If you notice that you are doing things that's putting you in harm's way, certainly that's always like, you really do need to ask for help. But I think, a lot of times some of the symptoms that don't get talked about, there is this tendency that you see for projection of like idealization and then devaluation, or angel, what they will call it colloquially, like angel devil, like you're either the bomb or I hate you kind of. There's a book, I don't know how it's probably old because I'm old, but it's like called I Hate You. What is it called? I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. And it's like these real extremes. So you want to be like, if you notice real dichotomous behaviors, meaning either or, all or nothing. And again, the instability in relationships, the real high highs and low lows. And that's not more rapid cycling. So not like longer periods that you'd see with like bipolar 1, but like you oftentimes see a misdiagnosis between bipolar 2 and borderline personality disorder. So that can be a little hard to weed out, but these really rapid cycles. I did want to also say, for anybody who thinks that this could be them, just so you know, it is talked about right now diagnostically, it is borderline personality disorder, but there's a lot of talk about a more appropriate way of naming this would be complicated post-traumatic stress disorder, because a lot of people are just saying this is a series of behaviors and traits that are learned and formed into personality, but it is secondary to coping with prolonged trauma, which is usually developmental. And it doesn't mean that like anybody's done anything to you. It's traumatic to be a human being, it just is. So, this sense of, I want to say, if you notice it, don't let the diagnosis prevent you from seeing yourself, because it's really just about recognizing, oh, this is how I've coped and it's no longer serving me. It's now hurting me. So I deserve, I hope you can feel, or at least I want to get help. So, yeah.
Well, you had mentioned some videos or...
Oh, right. So I had started a podcast. It's called the Inner Alchemy Podcast. And I'm actually just highlighting all the different kinds of healing and helping available in the world, because I just think we all need more access to it. And so I'm interviewing across the board, but I have one coming up on DBT. So keep an eye out for that. A colleague of mine who is a DBT specialist, she's going to be talking all about DBT, and she's amazing. And so there's also a bunch of other things, everything from tarot cards to really empirically validated, like trauma treatment and everything across the board. So yeah, it's called the Inner Alchemy Podcast, and you guys can check it out on iTunes.
I love tarot cards. I've heard it called 78 Therapists in a Box.
Yes, yes. Well, I've got a great one on a really fantastic gal came on and talked about oracle cards, which we can all do. The truth of the matter is, and Isabelle spoke to this, and it was really lovely what she said, we are all in a continuum, we humans, and every single human being is on that. And so this us and them model is just so archaic. So yeah, if it works for you and you find healing in it, pursue it. That's what I say. So yeah, and you can find me on Instagram too. And if you have questions, you can DM me. I'm not the greatest at getting back initially, but I will write you back.
All right. Well, with that, I think I'm going to close up. And you were so informative and helpful, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me
I'm
on.
glad
Yeah,
you came today.
I'm happy to be part of the conversation. Take it
All
easy.
right.
Good to see you again.
Bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm. All right, everybody. Thank you all for being here today. And my screen's going nutty. There we go. Sorry. Thank you all for being here today. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks with another Instagram Live. And if you want to catch us on Facebook, that'll be next week. And we're going to be talking about healthy relationships and how to keep them healthy or make them better for yourself. So remember, go to HealthyPlace.com for more information on borderline personality disorder, all the personality disorders and the mental illnesses and ways to stay mentally healthy on HealthyPlace.com. So you're welcome, everybody, for saying thank you. I will see you in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.